Hey, Kev.
Ready.
Hey, I want to ask you about the process of Jalen mentioned he kind of went into this game thinking run, run, run. We have a nice matchup there. And then gradually things went the other way to pass, which obviously was productive. What's the process like when you're kind of changing in midstream like that? Are there conversations? Is it organic? Does it just happen? What's that like?
So I think going into a game, right, you have the game plan and you want to emphasize and structure what you want to identify with early, knowing that you could get to the stuff later like we did. And that's kind of how it works. I think Jalen and I have a lot of conversations and he's definitely detailed up on everything. He does a tremendous job of understanding what we want to do and when we're going to get to it at certain times. So I think, when you look at that, you want to establish something like we did early with the run, and it just opens up the rest of what we want to do the rest of the game. And sometimes you have to be patient for it and wait for the right opportunities, and I think that kind of what's presented itself in the game.
Devontae Smith and several players talked about how the play action shot kind of was advocated and eventually reached you. How did it reach you?
So that play was put in on Wednesday. We put the plan together. It was a play off of a play. And so the process started Wednesday with the installation. We walk through it. We go through it in practice. And then as you get closer to the game, we kind of identify which plays we like going in. And there's some setup plays that lead to a play like that. And so when you go through that process, the guys know it's on their radar. And obviously that was one that potentially could go to him or to AJ. So they're both on high alert for like, hey, if this gets called, this is my deal. And then, what was going on early in the game was we had some formations and some plays that kind of set up the looks potentially. And what's great about our team is their football IQs are so high. So when I ask them a question like, "Hey, what can you run? What I need you to run here? What this leverage is?" The guys are really good about identifying what they're seeing and telling me. So, once we got the question asked and he answered it, then it was a matter of like, okay, can we protect this and get this done properly with what they're doing? So then you got to go to the O-line and the communication goes from there. And so all the guys are on the same page because once that play gets brought up, they know what we're trying to do. And then it's a matter of finding the proper window to get it called. And at halftime, it was one of the plays that we discussed that we're going to come up early if we get the right opportunity, and it presented itself. And that's the biggest thing that, when the guys know the plan, and that's what we kind of talk about all last week and we can continuously do, is when you know the plan and you understand it, it's easy for them to adjust and grab what we're trying to do and execute in those moments. So it's really a team thing. I mean, you can see how connected everybody is within the plan on the offense, and they understand. And so, and I know Landon talked about it too. Like, he knew what we were trying to do. Like, everybody knows, like, hey, Kev, we talked about this. Here it comes. We can protect it. Let's let it fly. So it's pretty cool.
Do you find players are like somewhat selective with what they bring to you when they're pushing for a play?
Well, typically, like, if the ball goes to them, they suggest it. So, I mean, that's typically what happens. But, a lot of times it's not even they suggest stuff. It's our staff does a good job of asking the right questions. I think that's the biggest piece, is a lot of times they know what I'm going to ask them, and what's going on. Like, hey, what is the corner doing to you? Or if it's Landon and Lane, hey, what's the backside of this run feel like? So I think it's more about that. Than anything. A lot of them don't just suggest blindly, stuff. And typically when they suggest, it's the plays that are in the plan, you know what I mean, that they go in with all week, that they know that we've worked on. They've seen the looks. They've seen what we potentially are getting and why we want to call it. So they kind of go through that. Rarely do they just make something up, and if they did, it was definitely for them. So
What stood out about the way Jalen played? I mean, obviously he's had big games before, Super Bowls and all that. Like, did anything in particular kind of stand out to you this time?
I think the biggest thing is his command of everything and his control of the entire game. He puts so much work into it at all times that you can feel his just presence out there, and you knew he had a great feel for what was going on, and he stood in the pocket, which was absolutely tremendous, made some big time throws. So I think the biggest thing is that, right? His leadership and understanding what we were trying to do as an offense and the direction we were going, and just his full command of it. And everybody feeds off that, right? I mean, he was making plays when we needed him. He had a great job on scramble a few times when plays broke down, but he also stood in the pocket and made some elite throws, and it was tremendous. And guys feed off that, and so you can definitely feel his presence and his leadership out there.
Sorry, if I can just follow up on that question. On the plays where Vikings were dropping 8 and he had all day to throw, what is the coaching point on that? Actually, can you first of all speak on Jalen's patience on those looks, and what's the coaching point on that? Because oftentimes when defense is dropping 8, the first look is going to be gone.
Correct.
So like, particularly the deep ball to AJ for the first touchdown. Again, like what's the coaching point on having him just sit back there and wait for something to develop?
So, anytime a play breaks down or you get drop 8 like that happens and defenses throw something out there to just kind of get you off schedule, it's important that all the guys understand what kind of mode we're in, right? So Nick does a good job of just setting up these kind of things throughout practice where we randomly get a scramble drill or things just break down on purpose so we can practice these. Because if you look at a lot of good offenses, whether it's the Chiefs, the Bills, obviously us with the scramble drill, it's a big part of it. There's way more off-schedule plays than I think a lot of people realize at times. But they're not necessarily off schedule because when you start to flush, there's rules to it, right? So there's these rules and things about where we need to be at the time when we start to break contain, or when you're sitting in the pocket with the 3-man rush and you start to feel space, the guys understand like, hey, I can go to this space, this guy's working in my space. So I think when you look at it, it is like a broken play-ish, but they're very structured. So, because if not, right, guys will end up in the same spot and nobody ever gets open. And so you miss out on what potentially is a big play, right? The defense is trying to confuse you. Well, they confuse you. Well, the best thing to combat that is, I know I've all day back there, so let's get into areas in space to find and make big plays.
With the under center,
What did you see that made you want to go under center?
I think really each week kind of presents something new. And I think this past week was a week that we felt like it could help us and give us an advantage in the game plan and open up some different things for us. And, we did that early with the runs, and then it elevated to the play actions.
so to follow up on
Mhm.
that, the sort of the mini buy self scout that you guys talked about, it was not more to do with we want to get better at this or game plan specific more.
I would say both, right? I think there's always things you want to get better at continuously, see if you can do them and develop them into something new. And it's got to present itself within the game, right? So you're not going to put something in or say, hey, we want to get better at this, but we can't do it this week. We'll just have to wait for the next week. So it's one of those things that's kind of organic. You really want to say, like, we want to identify things we need to get better at, but at the same time, they got to fit in each week. And then how much can you do of it within the week and then just build from there is kind of how it started and how it went.
Hey, Kevin, Saquon's numbers it's weird. He's averaging 5.1 yards in the first quarter, which is actually one of the highest in the league. Then it goes down to 3.8 in the second quarter, 3.4, and then 1.4 in the fourth quarter. Any thoughts on why you guys have run the ball well early, and then maybe it's dropping off?
I think the game the other day kind of presented itself similar to where we were able to get out in the runs a little bit. Then the rest of the stuff opened up. So I think that's kind of a piece of it. And then obviously late in the game, the fourth quarter, we've had a few 4-minute drives where we're running the ball situationally. So situationally, statistically, they're probably going to go down just because of what we're trying to do with the clock in those moments. But I think really when you look at it, it's sometimes the way the game's presented itself as far as get the runs going, and the rest of the offense can feed off of it. And that's kind of how the game went the other day.
On the 3rd and 9, the kill shot on the end between Jalen and AJ, Nick said that was a run initially. Jalen and AJ saw each other. Saw
Which one was this now?
the 3rd and 9 completion at the end, that final drive.
Okay.
Where does Jalen's agency in the system kind of work out? Like,
Are you talking about the double move?
yeah,
Yeah. So ask your question again. What did Nick say? Sorry.
there was a run in that situation called.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to go into what exactly was
But-
called, but
Just
Not
curious like where Jalen's agency works in the system, like, kind of to what you're saying, you had high football IQ players, like where does that kind of fit in the dynamic?
so, when you install plays and you meet with the guys, when you have a high football IQ, they can understand what you're trying to do within a play to give them an advantage to problem solve it. And so when you have guys like Jalen and AJ and they understand what's going on, they can accelerate that and really foresee what's going to happen. And so when plays get called like that, it's great to see them execute because they know what they need to do, what their job's going to be, what it's going to feel like, what it's going to look like. And then they put it into action like that. Really just goes to show how fast they can play in those moments because it's a lot of chaos, right? It's loud. Play call comes in. You're trying to identify what's happening and trying to see it and then progress from there. And to make a play like that work in those moments, it just shows a lot how poised they were in knowing what we were trying to do.
Did the uptick with under center have anything to do with the center change?
Say it again now?
Did the uptick in under center have anything to
No,
do with the center?
no.
Devontae set a career high in yardage this in a game. Have you seen him? Is this the best you've seen him? And is there a certain area maybe where he's grown this year from the past few years that stands out to you?
I think a little bit is about opportunity. He's had a lot of opportunities, and he's made the most of them. He's a dynamic player, right? He's a Heisman Trophy winner. He's one of the best players in the league still, obviously, and we're going to use him in any capacity we can. And his energy is just infectious at all times. And when he brings, to the table is same thing, like high football IQ. He gets the game. He gets moved around a lot. He understands what his job is in moments, and he makes those plays. And he's been a clutch player for us, and it's really been fun to watch him.
You ever seen a guy that size who's that tough?
No, I mean, for his size, as much as he gets hit and bounces right up and keeps it going, I think that's part of his energy. Everybody feeds off that because people probably think he can't do that, but he does every time, and he's consistent, and he's an extremely, extremely tough person mentally and physically, and it's awesome.
On his long touchdown reception, what are some details about his route running that you appreciate from there?
I think the biggest thing is when you watch the route, he understood what he needed to do with what was happening with the coverage as far as where the window was going to be for Jalen to throw it. And that just speaks to the volume of how smart he is and understands, like, I need to be in this spot because the throw is going to be here. And he kept his speed up, which is extremely hard to do when you're running a downfield route like that. He was able to move the corner and still keep his leverage and keep speed through the catch. And that just shows how dynamic of a throw it was. I mean, he didn't break stride. Like, that was an incredible throw, a long throw in a pocket with play action to hit it in stride. Those two were on the same page. It was really, really good.
The approach for the backup center spot, or I guess the replacement center spot, is that different if there's a week to prepare relative to in a game?
At times, I mean, it can be. It just depends on who's available for the game. But Stout does a great job of making those guys be ready to go for whatever happens and the shuffling that needs to happen. We're always ready at all times.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.